Beneath a hush of indigo sky, the night rests over Arcadia like a soft shawl draped across sleeping hills. Laurel trees lean close, their slender arms braided by the hush of wind that carries no message, only memory. It is here, in this quilt of silence and leaves, that Heracles arrives not with armor, nor with flame in his heart, but with hands empty and eyes wide as the moon's reflection in a still pond. His breath does not disturb the mist that floats low above the forest floor. He walks softly, not out of caution, but as one who understands the sacred rhythm of this place. For the woods he enters are not merely trees and earth, but a sanctuary, woven with golden threads of myth woven around a being not made for pursuit, but for reverence. The Ceryneian Hind. They say her hooves never crush a flower, that her golden antlers carry sunlight even beneath new moons. She is the sacred breath of Artemis, given form grace embroidered onto fur, motion refined into stillness. And she moves, not in haste, but as if the forest makes room for her, parting like the petals of a night-blooming flower. But Heracles does not seek to catch her with force. That is not the nature of this tale. No, he seeks something else, an understanding, perhaps, a kind of stillness that cannot be grasped, only shared. The laurel leaves above him glisten as though kissed by stars. Each one turns gently as he passes, whispering not warning, but invitation. The earth beneath his sandals is soft with years. His journey through the other trials has left him with the knowledge that not all challenges ask for strength. Some ask only for presence. In this forest, there are no cries, no beasts to conquer, only the faint music of water trickling nearby, the occasional flutter of a feathered wing, and the hush of trees that have watched centuries turn without blinking. Time here is not a river, but a still pond reflecting, waiting, never rushing. Heracles pauses. He places a hand against the bark of an ancient tree, feeling the quiet pulse within. It welcomes him, not as a hero, but as a wanderer in need of rest. Overhead, the sky turns a shade lighter, not with dawn, but with the breath before it. A moment suspended. He steps deeper into the veil of trees, where gold seems to drift between leaves, not like light, but like memory. The air is thick with something unspoken, a hush that folds around him gently. Even his thoughts begin to slow, stretching like shadows at the end of day. He does not call out, he does not search, he simply listens. And somewhere, beneath the soft canopy of starlit green, a creature stirs, not startled, not fleeing, only acknowledging. The forest does not shift. The night does not break. But something has begun. A presence, a breath, a beginning. The trees cradle your breath now, slow and long. Let the hush linger just a little longer, where even footsteps become part of the stillness. Morning has not yet claimed the forest. Instead, the world hangs in that delicate space between shadow and glow, where colors are still dreaming and sound has yet to awaken. Heracles moves within this breath, and the earth beneath him is damp with dew, shining like stardust caught in a web of moss and root. He stops at the edge of a stream so narrow it barely ripples. On the far bank, pressed into the glimmering green, are footprints for delicate impressions, finer than any mortal stag could leave. They do not press deeply into the soil, as though the creature had only brushed the ground, like mist grazing. A leaf. He kneels beside them, not to measure or study, but to witness. The shape of them feels more like a hymn than a sign. Here is not evidence of movement, but an offering. The hind has passed through, leaving behind something softer than presence, a memory wrapped in morning hush. Birdsong does not yet fill the trees. Even the smallest wind waits. Heracles lowers his head slightly, as if in prayer, not out of ritual, but out of resonance. These are not paths meant for pursuit. They are invitations to unhurried being. Across the stream, the undergrowth parts in a quiet line of gold, not glowing, not leading, simply being. Ferns curve as if in a slow exhale, and the tips of ancient grasses sway without breeze. Every leaf seems arranged by unseen hands to allow passage without disturbance. The forest here knows the hind, not in the way mortals know animals, but as one knows a dream that returns night after night unchanged, gentle, impossible to keep. As he steps across the water, the surface barely trembles. There is no splash, only a widening circle of light, like moonlight unfolding in still water. His foot touches the other side, and the footprint he observed is already beginning to fade, not erasing itself, but becoming part of the earth again. There is no path, only impressions, momentary and luminous, appearing not as marks, but as thoughts the forest briefly held. Heracles follows, not with pursuit, but with presence. He does not reach, he does not expect. In his passing, animals remain. A dove perches above him without flutter. A hare watches from a fern nest unmoved. He is not an intruder here, only a breath joining many. Even the air tastes of stillness and memory. Somewhere ahead, a faint sound, if it is sound at all. A glisten, a shimmer, the idea of a bell far away. Perhaps the dew itself, ringing in golden harmony with the dawn. Heracles pauses once more. Each step he takes feels less like movement and more like remembrance. As though some part of him already knew this trail, not in his mind, but in the quiet place behind his heartbeat. The trees here are taller, their trunks wrapped in soft lichen-like robes worn by monks in slumber. Their branches form arches above him, letting in only fragments of a slowly waking sky. Light falls in gentle beams, and where it touches the ground, it turns to something more than light, a kind of knowing, diffused and warm. There, between the columns of trees, another print, just one this time, kissed by sunlight. It fades even as he notices it, but not into nothing, into belonging. He does not speak. The forest does not ask him to. It is enough to walk, to see, to wait and not wait, to follow what cannot be followed. Let your breath drift like those fading prints, not gone, only returning to the earth in peace. The path continues, just softly enough to carry you forward. The trees begin to part not in abruptness, but with the soft courtesy of curtains drawn back by invisible hands. Where trunks once stood like ancient sentinels, there now opens a glade wrapped in morning hush. It does not announce itself. The light here does not brighten, but deepens into something more diffuse, as though the air itself were painted with quiet gold. Heracles steps into the meadow without claiming it. The moss welcomes him with a cool softness, and each blade of grass seems to lean gently in his direction before standing tall once more. This is no common field. It is a place suspended, where breath is not exhaled but held, not in fear, but in reverence. At the center, the grass is shorter, trimmed by time and silence. Tiny flowers, soft as lullabies, gather in constellations of white and violet. They do not open to the sun, but to something else, something remembered by the earth. The very air seems aware, not alert, but listening. Listening without ears, without language, just presence. A windless hush stretches across the meadow. No bee stirs. No wing flutters. The world leans slightly inward, like a cradle. Heracles does not move further. He stands at the edge, allowing the meadow to remain whole, untouched. He has learned. This kind of waiting, not with hope or need, but with acceptance. That some things arrive not when called, but when the silence within matches the stillness without. He lowers himself onto a flat stone dusted with lichen. It is warm though. The sun has not yet touched it. He places his palms against it, grounding himself into this wordless calm. His breath slows further, sinking with something beneath, a rhythm older than pulse. Then, almost imperceptibly, a change, not motion, not sound, a presence. Near the far end of the glade, a curve of golden light brushes the edge of a fern. It might be light, it might be horn, it might be the hush itself shaping into form. It does not step forward, nor turn away. It simply is, unafraid, unbothered, entirely within its own moment. The Ceryneian hind. Her shape is barely outlined. More suggestion than silhouette. Her coat carries no color the eye can name, but seems spun from the hour just before sunrise. Antlers rise like branches made of softened sun. Her breath does not stir leaves, yet the petals around her fold inwards, cradling themselves as if in sleep. She does not look at him. She does not need to. The meadow holds them both in equilibrium, not two presences, but one stillness shared. Heracles remains seated. There is no desire to rise, no pull to move closer. In this space, closeness is not measured by distance. It is measured by stillness, by breath, by knowing. He closes his eyes, and in that darkness, sees more clearly the shape of something ancient and undisturbed, not wild, not hidden, but at peace with being unseen. Moments pass, or perhaps none at all. Time does not move here. It rests. And when he opens his eyes once more, the golden glow has shifted, not gone, but elsewhere. The hind has moved as mist does, through, not across. The petals unfold again. The breeze returns with the gentlest stir, but the meadow still holds its breath, and so does he. Now, let your thoughts soften into stillness. The meadow asks nothing of you but to remain, and breathe, and be. The glade lies behind him now, though not in the way a place is left. It remains within him, a stillness, folded beneath his ribs. Heracles walks once more beneath the trees, but his steps have changed. They are not lighter, nor slower, but somehow quieter, carried not by effort, but by attunement. As though the forest itself now accepts his presence, like a leaf accepts dew. The canopy thickens gently above, filtering sunlight into long, slender beams that never quite reach the ground. These beams drift like silk ribbons, turning the dust into gold as they sway without breeze. Around him, the forest is no longer dense, it is deep, and with depth comes something else, not distance, but dimension. Layers upon layers of hush. It is within these folds that he feels it again. Not a sound, not a sight, a presence. He pauses beside an ancient tree, its bark patterned with pale green lichen and fine spirals, as if some quiet hand had etched a forgotten song. He lays his palm upon it, and the surface is cool. Behind it, between shadows and branches, a pair of eyes opens not abruptly, not wide, but with the gentleness of a cloud parting at dusk. They are not the eyes of prey, not the eyes of fear. They are like dawn, not in color, but in presence. That gentle, glowing sense that something is becoming, that the world has not yet spoken, but is about to in the most delicate of voices. They hold no challenge, no invitation, only knowing. The hind stands half concealed, as she often does, not hidden, but woven. Her form blends with tree and leaf, and light, not through magic, but through belonging. She is not apart from the forest. She is its breath, its slow pulse, its memory. Her gaze meets his not sharply, not directly, but softly, with the grace of a ripple meeting its source. And Heracles, for a moment longer than a breath, simply remains. There is no desire in him to move closer, nor does the hind move away. They are not predator and quarry. They are not even opposites. They are two silences listening to one another. He does not try to name the moment. To speak would shatter it. Even to think would stir too much wind. So he lets it be. Between them, a single leaf falls. It does not tumble. It glides in a slow spiral, landing without sound. The hind's ears shift slightly, not in alarm, but in response, like a harp string touched lightly in passing. Her form begins to step, not toward, not away, just along. As one moves through a memory, she disappears behind another veil of green, and Heracles watches without watching. He knows now that she will not flee, nor will she stay. She will move and pause and appear again, not when he seeks her, but when the forest breathes in such a way that both of them belong to the same moment again. And so he follows, not with pace, not with purpose, but with presence. The forest thickens once more, but there is no narrowing, only closeness. Vines hang like streamers of dusk. The air smells of bark warmed by sun, of leaves steeped in morning. Every step is softer now, as if the ground were rising slightly too. Meet him. He does not look for her eyes again. He does not need to. Their meeting was enough. Not an arrival, not a milestone. Just a pause in time that deepens everything around it. And now, he walks not to find, but to remain near the breath of what cannot be held. Let yourself drift into that gaze, the kind that asks nothing, promises nothing, and yet feels like home. The forest begins to shift, again not in its shape, but in its essence. Where before there was hush, now there is a kind of listening, as though something vast and unseen has turned its attention inward. The leaves still hang quietly, but with an added weight, like curtains drawn in a temple when the divine arrives, not with sound, but with presence. Heracles senses it before he understands it. There is another here, not the hind, not a creature of hoof and horn, but a presence vast and folded, old as sky, and wrapped in moonlight. He slows, not from fear, but from understanding. The space around him is touched now by the breath of Artemis. She is not seen as mortals are seen. There is no figure stepping from mist, no face behind a veil of vines. She is sensed in the way the light turns silver at the edges, in the way the wind takes on rhythm, in the way the deer's movement stills all thought before it begins. Artemis is here because the hind is hers, not possession, not command, but a deep bond. Like water belongs to the stream, like echo belongs to cave, like silence belongs to sanctuary. And Heracles, though once raised among sword and shield, knows that this is not a trial to pass, but a stillness to share. He does not kneel, there is no ritual, but he stands with lowered gaze, not out of humility, but clarity, knowing his presence must not disturb the harmony that already exists. There is no voice from the goddess, only a sense like being watched, not with scrutiny, but with knowing, as if every tree now carries eyes, and every rustle is a glance. And then again the hind appears. She steps forward, graceful beyond movement, her hooves making no sound. She does not approach Heracles directly. Instead, she moves through beams of light with the ease of moonlight across water. Her antlers shimmer not with brightness, but with memory of starfields and secret streams, of nights when the goddess walked the world unseen, her breath touching only the fur of this sacred deer. The hind pauses, and Heracles breathes once more. They are again in that shared space, not hunter and hunted, not mortal and divine, but two presences shaped differently by time, now circling a center that holds both. The goddess does not stop this. She does not shield her deer, nor banish the man. She watches, perhaps with curiosity, or perhaps with patience. Her gaze, if it could be touched, would feel like cool stone wrapped in silk, constant, silent, ever near. The hind moves again, slowly, and Heracles takes one step not toward, but alongside, across a narrow stream where the water seems to part in ribbons. The goddess does not intervene, because this is not a contest. It is communion, a lesson held in breath, not in word. In the rustling of the leaves above, Heracles hears what might be approval, or simply permission, or nothing at all. The meaning is not his to name. He looks once more to where the hind has passed, and finds her now between shafts of sun, surrounded by a hush so complete it feels like song paused just before its final note. Artemis remains, unseen but felt. Her watchfulness is not a boundary, but a presence within which the forest holds itself. Her grace mirrors the deer's grace. Her stillness gives the silence form. Heracles lowers his gaze in gratitude for triumph, but for this moment allowed. The hind lingers. The goddess does not vanish. Time remains stretched and soft, and somewhere in the deepest part of the forest, something sacred continues without interruption. You are in that forest now too. Let Artemis' gaze soften your thoughts. Let the deer's presence drift across your breath. The path is barely a path at all, more an agreement between forest and traveler, marked only by softened leaves and the faint imprint of dew parted gently by a passing shape. Heracles follows, not with purpose sharpened into pursuit, but with an awareness as quiet as morning mist upon stone. The hind moves always just beyond, not escaping, not waiting, simply continuing. She walks the edge of vision, never fully present, never entirely absent. Her form glimmers between trees like an idea half remembered, a flicker of movement that leaves the world exactly as it was, yet somehow more hushed in her wake. Time itself seems to stretch into silk, drawn slowly through the still air. Minutes no longer matter, steps no longer count. Heracles is not tracking, he is attending, listening not for sound, but for silence, and within that silence, for the shape of something softly luminous. Around him, the forest thickens, not densely, but richly. The trees here grow wider, older. Moss spreads like woven velvet over their roots, and small flowers, pale and half-opened, peer upward as though dreaming awake. He moves in rhythm with what surrounds him, not forging away, but being welcomed along it. Every movement is mirrored in leaf and breeze. A bird lifts its wings in slow arc and settles again. A squirrel pauses with a nut cradled in its paws, blinking once unbothered. The hind steps from behind a tree, not as a surprise, not as a gift, only as continuation. She regards him not directly, but from the side as one might glance at the sky to check that it still carries the stars. Her head tilts slightly. Her breathing is imperceptible. Her presence so strong and so soft seems to absorb the space around her into stillness. Heracles does not reach. He does not speak. He waits, and then she moves again, her hooves brushing past fern and petal without disturbance. Her pace is not slow, yet time does not move with her. It folds, it pauses, it bends into her shape. Heracles steps after her, matching not her speed, but her quietude. His breath is steady, more like the rustle of distant grass than anything mortal. There is no need to close distance. Nearness is not the point. He walks because she walks. He follows because she is. Above them, a ray of sunlight slips through the branches. It touches her antlers, and for a moment, the world fills with golden hush. Even the insects still. A puddle reflects the hind's hooves as she crosses it. The reflection does not ripple. Heracles steps in the same place, and the water holds him too, without sound. This is not a chase. It is a slow threading of presence through presence. A communion stitched into the fabric of the forest with every footstep that leaves no mark. Eventually, the trees opened into a narrow ridge just wide enough for a deer's path. Beyond it lies a shallow valley, mist curling along its floor like silk unraveling. The hind stands at the crest, bathed in light that makes no shadow. Her form seems etched from dawn itself. She pauses, not waiting, simply being. And Heracles, a few paces behind, stops once more. He does not ask if he is meant to continue. The moment will shape itself. For now, he simply breathes, and the forest breathes with him. Let your thoughts settle like mist in that valley. No arrival is needed. No reaching, only drifting, and the soft shape of presence. Mist gathers like folded linen across the valley floor, thick but weightless. It does not rise or fall. It simply lingers, draping over stones, resting in the hollows of tree roots, and veiling the narrow trail ahead. Here, the world seems to exhale, then pause, not for breath, but for balance. Heracles remains just beyond the ridge, still as the trees that edge the path. He feels no urge to descend, no call to reach. The hind stands below, her body nearly transparent in the veil of fog. The gold of her antlers refracts softly, not glowing, but diffusing like morning through frosted glass. She steps once, then once more. Each movement is a gesture of stillness, a ripple of meaning carried not in direction but in presence. Her hooves do not press, but grace the ground. And Heracles, watching, senses a thread that joins them now, not of pursuit or distance closed, but of breath shared across space. He steps down from the ridge, each footfall matched to the hush. There is no sound, only the imagined echo of moss remembering the curve of his heel. His shoulders soften, his gaze unfixed. He does not look for her, yet he sees her with the clarity of one who has stopped searching. In the bend of a tree, the hind disappears once more, not into forest, but into pause. And so, Heracles waits. He finds a willow, its long limbs sweeping the mist, and sits beneath it without ceremony. Its trunk is smooth where generations of wind have worn it into restfulness. He leans back, not to think, but to be. In this stillness, something opens. A moment between two heartbeats. Longer than it should be, yet not eternal. A space where the world does not move forward or backward, but simply hovers, perfectly balanced on its own breath. And in that breath, the hind returns. She emerges from mist, not stepping, not shifting, but appearing as if time remembered. Her Heracles does not rise. He does not even lift his hand. Instead, he lets her approach without direction, without command. She comes within reach, but there is no reaching. Her eyes, soft as dusk, meet his not in questioning, not in offering, only in being. The kind of gaze that does not look into, but through, that sees not the figure, but the pause behind it. She leans her head slightly, not toward him, but toward the moment itself. And for that brief eternity, the space between inhalation and its twin, they are joined, not by action, not by word, by breath, by stillness, by the hush that holds the world just before the leaf falls, just before the stars appear. Then she steps away, not fleeing, not ending, just continuing. Heracles does not follow. He closes his eyes, and in that pause he feels not loss, but completion. The hind disappears once more into the mist, and the willow's limbs sway, not in wind, but in memory. Now drift into that pause. Let yourself rest between two breaths, where nothing must happen and everything already is. The forest holds its breath in longer intervals now, as though reluctant to begin again. The trees no longer sway. Even the mist has settled, drawn into the folds of root and rock like sleep returning to the cradle of earth. Heracles walks once more, but not toward anything. Each step is part of a rhythm he no longer names. There is no before or after, only the unfolding now. He does not search, he does not linger. He follows the space where silence seems thickest, where time grows wide, and where the shape of the hind might or might not appear. And then she does, not as a return, but as a final note in a song that was always playing. She stands by a shallow stream, her hooves just at its edge, the water flowing as if hesitant to pass too quickly beneath her gaze. Her antlers reflect the light, no longer brilliant, but softened, like old gold beneath gauze. Her head is slightly bowed, not in offering, but in rest. There is no motion, there is no need. Heracles does not approach with care. He simply arrives, and the distance between them, which once stretched across forests and valleys, and time no longer exists. They are not close, they are together. He extends a hand, not outward, but downward, a quiet, resting gesture, like placing one's palm on warm stone. The hind does not move. She allows the air between them to remain untouched. That is enough. A presence that asks nothing, promises nothing, only remains. The stream flows on, but it carries no urgency. Just gentle glimmers of light, curling around stones, remembering the hind's reflection. Around them, the forest shifts toward dawn. Not suddenly, not brightly, but with the kind of slow warmth that seeps through bark and soil, waking roots before it reaches leaves. This is the moment that completes the trial. But there is no triumph here, no capture, no conquest, only stillness held without holding. Heracles knows the hind is free, must remain free, that to touch would be to unsettle the very thing he has come to understand. And yet, in this non-touch, he feels closer than he has to anything he has ever held. This closeness is not of skin or space. It is the closeness of breath shared, of rhythm aligned, of being in tune with something not made to be kept. The hind turns her head gently, not to leave, just to return to her path, unchanged. She steps into the stream, and the water curls around her legs like ribbons drawn from memory. One more step, and she begins to vanish, not in disappearance, but in reintegration, becoming part of the hush once more, a breath inhaled by the forest itself. Heracles does not follow. He stands still, not because the moment is over, but because it is always becoming. A single leaf falls, a ripple expands. The trial has passed, though it never truly began. In his stillness, Heracles carries the hind with him, not as a trophy, but as a rhythm, a way of being, a knowledge without words. Behind him, the forest breathes again. The path he leaves is one of soft prints, already fading into moss. And above, in the golden veil of early light, a shape lingers, not seen, not heard, but felt. A creature of silence, a presence of grace, a memory that never leaves. Let yourself remain in that moment now. Let the stillness wrap around you like light around antlers, like mist around morning. There is nothing to reach for. You are already there. You are no longer walking. You are resting within the hush that lingers. After all, stories end, not in silence, but in the soft hum of something sacred remaining. Around you, the forest does not close. It stays open, spacious, vast in its stillness. The trees no longer need to speak. They have already shared what they came to share. You breathe in slowly, and the air feels like something remembered, like golden light over water, like the moment a deer pauses just long enough to be seen. You are not chasing anything. You are not waiting for anything. You are simply here, where presence is enough, and stillness is more than sleep. You have followed without reaching, watched without grasping, and now the rhythm of breath and leaf and gentle hoofbeat continues inside you, quiet and whole. There is nothing to hold, and nothing has left. The forest breathes with you. The hind drifts somewhere beyond sight, not gone, not distant, just folded back into the weave of the world. And you, soft in your breath, light in your limbs, are part of that weave too. You may let go now. The hush will hold you, always.